Hi, a lot of you are interested in peer review, and quite a few people have asked me and also Denise to talk about peer review at the away day. So as Denise is away, we thought we'd record this little interview, and she's kindly agreed to go through how she basically operates and why she does peer review. So over to you, Denise.
Thanks. So I'll just give you a little bit of context. Probably 5 years ago, I took over 206, started off at about 200 students, and it's now 300 going up to 350. And I do 364, which is a final year undergrad. That sits at about 50 students. And there's two things going on with second year students. We need to do group work. Okay, so part of the group work I decided to draw into the module was around debate. And as part of a debate, they're in groups of 5. So the assessment needed to be directly correlated to the contribution they make. One of the downsides to that is not all students contribute at the same level. So when I put the debate through to the Education Committee to get it approved, the feedback was it needs to have an individual component within it, approximately 10 grades, to demonstrate that some can get, for example, 50 from an assessment and some can get 60 within that group. Why did I do it? I did it because specifically, my observation is some students feel it's unfair if their voice is not heard. So I really wanted a way of them to be able to be recognised for their great contribution, but also if someone hasn't contributed, that they're also recognised, because that's exactly how it works in the work environment. So it introduced this grade differentiation, which was also needed by our assessment board, our exam board as well. So if you look at my module specification for both of those, you'll see that 10% on assessment 1 is dedicated to a peer review, which means it has to be demonstrated that I've collected that data from those students to be able to make up that grade. It's also very explicit in my module handbook that this assessment 1 has 10% peer review. You have to state it to them, and that their contribution directly impacts their grade. They can also, as part of a peer group in a team, be excluded from that team for non-attendance and other issues. And therefore, if they're removed from the group, then their work will also be capped and that 10% grade will be removed. So in practice, how it runs, I'll just drop down quickly. This is their peer review that they will fill in at the end. I ask them to follow attend the structure when they're having each meeting about keeping records of attendance, so attends and prepares for team meeting, contributes ideas, listens and respects others, demonstrates a key role in the team, and positive attitude to meetings. So they use that as the framework when they go into their weekly meetings without me there, and they know then how they're going to grade each other at the end, so it isn't a surprise. It needs to be very transparent.
Denise, can I just ask you how you came up with those criteria?
Yeah, so those came back from the Education Committee and also from the students themselves. So when the Education Committee said they need criteria, I said to the students, can you tell me what are the biggest contributors and what are the biggest issues? And I put them into those statements. Okay, so it's student-led, but also Education Committee compliant. How it runs, so the framework that they have, they know what they need to be doing, what they're being monitored against. Assessment, when I go into the assessment, that peer review element must be completed before they take the assessment. It's really important because I've had one situation where assessment didn't go great and I had a grudge grade given to a set of students. So I absolutely refuse to take anybody's assessment now until they've given me the peer review and then they start their assessment. It's worked best for me in the past, if I'm absolutely honest, if they fill in a paper version, because then I've got it in front of me, they give it me, I can sit and immediately you can see if there's been any issues in that team. When you start seeing that the grades are tumbling all over the place, you're looking for behaviours then when you're assessing to see if there's any issues there. So it's a really good indicator. I also now, because of Canvas, I also get them to submit it into Canvas as well. And unless I've got both submissions, the paper and the online, they can't take the assessment. This stops all that bridge grades. So in practice what happens in reality, if they are excluded, they are capped, and I put that in Canvas. They've been removed from the group work, and their work will be capped at 90 because they haven't done the team element of that work. There are some exclusions to that, and I'll talk about them. So once they're excluded, they get a written piece of assessment, which follows exactly the same format as the debate. So they will have to cover the 5 topics, and they have to submit that in a 2,000-word report. If they have a statement of educational need and they're struggling with group work, and it's quite explicit on their statements, that's why I ask you all to go and have a look before you start teaching them. I email everybody with those statements and say, if anybody really does struggle and can't do teamwork, and it's on their statement, please come back to me and I will give them the alternative assessment, and that won't be capped because they have a statement of educational need, and that's fair to do that. I do have some students throughout the term, for different reasons. I'll give you one scenario this time with mental ill health, who really couldn't cope with team meetings. They were struggling to leave their home, and I got involved. The learning teaching LTSO was involved, and I said to that department, listen, absolutely want to keep the student on board and keep them progressing. Can you approve with me that they're excluded from the team element, but they have full grades for their report? And the learning teaching team were fantastic. It's absolutely fine. We want, like you want, the student to carry on. So there are exclusions that you can follow for good reason, but it needs to be approved by our teaching assessment office. Some of the issues I've had in the past with the peer reviews, and that's why I wanted to talk about how in practice it works. We do have some students who really aren't pulling their weight, and they're non-attenders. A lot of the students really are very reluctant to report them, to whistle-blow on them, and they will tell you in the 11th hour. And that's why I get them to take away the peer review to start with, and I get them literally to put a tick in each box. Have you attended each week? And if there's 5 meetings, there should be 5 ticks. It doesn't always work, but it just helps the students understand the importance of attendance. Some of the other issues, and hopefully Sue will go over them with you while you're there with the tech team, is the administration and management of it, because you can imagine every student is filling this in for 4 team members. And usually if it's paperwork, I take it in on the day, I can see that they've all completed it, and I will manually enter that 10. We now have an opportunity in Canvas where there's a technical solution, and hopefully, Sue, can you just give a little bit of background?
Yes, so something that the team from CIE will be covering is how we can take something like Denise's peer assessment, put that into Buddy Check, and find a much more efficient way of actually dealing with this. And particularly, I know you spend a lot of time working out what the actual grades are from what the students have sent in. So Buddy Check, I'm hoping, and hopefully CIE can help with this, will take some of that pain away.
Fabulous, thanks, Sue. So like I mentioned, that's what it looks like. So Sue's got a copy of the Word version for you. It's quite clear there. They put their own student name, their own student number. I get them to fill all those details, where the tutorial seminar number that they're in, where the debate took place, the time of the debate, and the date of the debate. That seems excessive. The reason being, if there's any mess up, because remember I'm assessing 300, I can collect that student back into their team because I have enough detail. If they've just put their name, I'm then looking through so much paperwork to try and link them back in. So I tend to take a stapler, put the 5 together, I've got them, and then I can work from there. You can see what I do for the does not meet needs, meets needs, and then exceeds needs, exceeds expectations or meets expectations, so they know how to grade. And then I get them to add it up at the end, and it's usually out of 10. The majority, I'll be honest, tend to give 10 to each other, which is absolutely fair. The chances are they've all worked really hard, and that's fine. You'll often get someone who'll give 6 or 8 or 7, and then that then has to be calculated throughout. So you can see why it starts getting a little bit complex. If I'm on my final year, they're fine with that. And this comes back to quite often, lecturers won't do teamwork in the final year, and students don't want teamwork in the final year because of the complexity and the issues. This has helped remove some of that. So I do have teamwork in the final year because I think they should be getting used to teamwork. But what I've done is I've upped the game on it, and I'm just going to go in a minute into this yellow card, red card system I've done, because the biggest thing is if they don't attend, then the other grades all fall down as well. And it also lets the team down. It creates stress and anxiety. And I'm very aware that, you know, I'm always available. They can pop in. I tend to have team meetings if there's anything going astray. I've put clear instructions in the handbook. I'll send a copy of them to Stu as well, so you know how to follow it up. But it's really good. It gives me a feel for good factor. I feel we're giving them a really good set of skills to go to business with. 94% of people now work in teams. If we can't leave them, you know, if they can't leave us knowing how to work in a team, they're going to really struggle. And my research is in high performing teams, and a lot of it is knowing the unsaid rules of a team. How does it work? How do you form, function, behave? So I think we just, you know, they deserve it, and we should, wherever we can, help them with that.
Denise, can I just ask and clarify? So they've got that total grade award of possible 10, and it sounds like you will quite often give a 10. I just wondered if the external examiners ever flagged up, you know, sometimes they come and say, how can you give full marks and give a set of 10
It's not
marks?
us giving them,
yeah.
So it's the students. These are all anonymized. Yeah. So right. I didn't mention that earlier. These are completely anonymous, and they come in before the assessment. Yeah. So nobody sees what each other is giving them. Nobody's forcing anybody to give a 10. Nobody. Yeah. Yeah. They choose to do that. Yeah. Historically, I used to get them to do a paragraph about each student's contribution as well. But I think they were getting a little bit overworked, because the final bit of that Word document is a reflection on their own team contribution. So I get them to also reflect, what have you contributed? What are your strengths? What are your challenges? I tend to use Belbin because I'm au fait with Belbin. You can use any type of metric you want to, but it just helps them think, you know, were these problems my problems? And you get sometimes a really honest account of, I could have done better, I could have done more, I should have been more timely. I've created some, you know, so they are quite honest, because they know they're not going to get graded for this, but it's for their own personal gain. You know, this is real. We want you to get into a workplace. Yeah,
I know certainly when I've done peer assessment in the past, it is quite surprising how honest students are with the grade. So yeah, I think
they are good. I mean, if you're worried about the assessors and them giving 10, reintroduce what I did, which is just a paragraph about each student's contribution, and then the external can see that, because you're keeping them, they're submitting it through Canvas. You can see it is a student's own work and it's anonymized. So following on from that, I get them to do this, and then they get the grades after. So the problems I've come across is attends and prepares in teams, and it was coming through in the seminars. If people aren't turning up in the seminars, they're not turning up in the team meeting. So I've introduced a yellow card and a red card. Now Sue will like this because you're football, and the thanks go to Liz Crowley, who's also football, and she introduced it in her marketing. And again, this has all gone through the assessment panel, the exam panel for the module. But a yellow card and red card, and I've used it this year on my final years, has been an absolute release for the students. They've 100% loved it, except 3 students didn't love it because they actually got yellow carded and red carded. And I'll explain what happened to them. But on talking to them, they actually understand why they got a red card. And then they also did very well in their own right. They were just excluded from the teamwork, and they were quite disgruntled that they should be. But once excluded, the team that was left did very well. They didn't feel uncomfortable because it was me who did the yellow card and the red card, and they moved on instead of getting anxious and worried. It felt like the flotilla floated on without any concerns. So how it works, the yellow card is first missed seminar, they get a yellow card, and the same goes on in their team. If they miss attendance, the team can give them a yellow card. If they've missed 2, because remember they're having their assessment by week 7, 8, they've missed already a quarter, 20%, 30% of the work, the team can exclude them as well. I found, I'll be honest, it was me doing the yellow card, red card. The teams didn't need to, because once they got the yellow card from me, they realised we mean business and we have to start listening. So the yellow card I gave to everybody who didn't turn up to a seminar 1, because I'd published, and it's in the handbook, it is compulsory attendance. The first lot, I think I give 10 or 12 yellow cards. Bit of an uproar. I've got this, how dare you? Well, actually I dare, because if you're in the workplace and you didn't turn up for work and you were supposed to, you would actually get a warning. And I'm giving you a warning now. I'm saying you can't miss. These are compulsory, you have to attend. The second one, and this is, so the narrative here is exactly what is published in the handbook. It's published on my announcements before we start. And everybody knew who joined my final year module, this was going to be the case. It wasn't a surprise for them. I told them straight. And I talked to them about, team and teamwork is extremely important. It's a skill you need to take the workplace. Free riders will not be tolerated on this module. And do you know what? They love that. They actually love structure and knowing that there is no free riders. It really gives them a sense of, actually, if I got 70, I worked for 70, and if I was excluded, then that's what happens. It's real life. So I kept a log of this. So I kept a spreadsheet of the whole seminar by seminar, all of them. And then I kept a bit like an attendance register and give them a yellow card. You can now do it in Canvas, because Canvas has an attendance monitoring. If you want to do it by seminar, you can actually now do it in Canvas. I put all of mine, I'll be honest, in Teamwork. I always do Teamwork in Teams, Microsoft Teams, and I issue literally on the day in the team. If they've not turned up, I'll put non-attendance yellow card, non-attendance yellow card, and then I'll just send them a standard email at the end. And it keeps my records really accurate. And I'm Claire, you can see there, university regulations also allow for a mark, and I didn't realise this, of an extra 10% in a team if there's an outstanding team worker as well. So it's interesting that the university as a whole recognise team working and the importance of it. So that's how the system works. Students love it. I got full, I got week 1, week 3, week 5 and week 8 feedback. Week 1, you can imagine everybody was there, thought it was fantastic. Week 3, the people who hadn't been there but turned around, I had some disgruntled by week 5, week 8, they thought it was perfect. They really thought this had transformed their educational experience. So I was really pleased with it, I'll be honest. So if I do red card them, they have an alternative assessment that they can do that is capped, but it's capped at 90%. It's exactly the same work that we will be doing in the team, in the debate, covering exactly the same areas, but they go and do it on their own. They can still carry on turning up for seminars to get the content, but they just won't get the team grade. So is there anything else you can think of that I've missed?
No, I think you've covered it all. What I would say is, if staff are interested in following up on this, what should they do? Can they come and have a chat, basically?
Just honestly, we'll just carry on with this conversation with them. I would absolutely love people to carry on with teamwork. I'd love more people to do debates, I'll be honest. I love the debate, but the three fit together so well. But the peer review, quite often, I think it's the education committee who say, if you're going to do teamwork, there should be an individual component to show contribution. So it helped me that it came through that you can't do it without. And since I've done it, the students are happier. So it does work.
Thank you very much, Denise. Thank you.
You're welcome.